Da 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 da. What's my good cheer? Welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes to get those notifications out. In the meantime, if you've never met me before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. And today was a cool day. A little bit of relief for the people in Winnipeg. And if you don't know, I'm from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. We have been in a bit of a heat wave. And I'm not complaining because I know there are places in the world that have got it much worse. But it is something that I kind of wanted to mention, how wonderful it is, how kind it is that people take other people into consideration when things are uncomfortable, when things might be a little bit unbearable, or if you're comfortable, but then you can see out there because of the heat and because of maybe somebody doesn't have an air conditioner in their home. And you can tell, especially in the building that I live in, I have over 200 suites in this building. And I went out to the grocery store this morning. And when I walked outside, it was early. It was like 9 o'clock in the morning. And it was like a party out there. It was like everybody in the building was outside enjoying the milder, cooler weather. It was still hot. It's why I decided to go do my grocery shopping before it got later in the afternoon and got hotter, is because I wanted to make sure to avoid that heat. But everybody had that same idea today. And it was kind of lovely to walk out there, everybody socializing, keeping everybody company. But then, you walk to the grocery store, and it was actually a few days ago, maybe last week, I went there and it was right in the midst. It was so hot outside. And there was just some random lady. She wasn't very old. She was in her early 20s, maybe. And she had one of those rollaway coolers. And she was sitting in front of the liquor store on a bench. And she had her cooler open and it was full of waters and Gatorades. And it was like a sign on the front of it that said, help yourself, right? Right? What do you need? How can I help? And I thought that was absolutely beautiful. I actually stopped by her and told her how wonderful an idea that was, because that was something she did it out of her own accord, right? Purchased those drinks out of her own pocketbook, was spending that time when she probably could have been sitting in the air conditioning, right? Comfortable, but appreciating that other people were not comfortable. Another thing, I'm sorry to hear about the floods that are going on in New York and New Jersey. It was really kind of, I was watching and I saw an historical building just get swept away. It just caved in and got swept away. And it was probably 200 years old of history just gone in an instant. My heart went out to that fact. But right after that little bit, it was a news broadcast. Right after that, they went into an interview and a little bit of filming of what was going on in the area. And it was so beautiful the way people were helping people who were stuck in the water, people helping to get little old ladies across the street, bikers that are normally, people avoid them. They're scary looking, right? But they were just out there and everybody was just helping everybody, and I thought it was absolutely beautiful. It's in those difficult situations, I think, that the best examples and the best lessons are divvied out. I really do believe that to be true. And actually, what just came to my mind too was in something that came across my path in the topics that were being suggested to me today. And it was a thumbnail, and the thumbnail was split in half. And on one side of the thumbnail, there were a bunch of women all dressed in white robes with blue skies, right? In a picture, AI generated, of course. And then the other side of the the thumbnail was totally black, and then there were a bunch of witchy looking women in black robes standing there as a group, kind of made to look like they were a gang, right? And the thumbnail said on top of it, the light has won. And it hit me, and I didn't understand the feeling. I go by my triggers, you guys. I'm a very feely person in my reactions. Grateful now that I've learned to kind of stall in them without having to feel I need to react in them, because that was the person I used to be, right? As soon as I got triggered, I would react, right? But, you know, I gave it a moment, and I recognized how agitated I was by that thumbnail. I said, not a chance. I'm not going in to see what this is all about. I felt angry about it in the moment. And I had to feel it out, right? And I gave it some thought. And it was in that understanding that, yes, things are getting lighter, right? You might not look at it out in the world with the hairy, scary, and the crazy town going on. Hello, Tammy. With the hairy, scary, and the crazy town out there. But, the light is coming in. The light hasn't won, right? And why are we stereotyping? Why are we stereotyping people? Just like I was talking about, the bikers helping little old ladies across the flooded streets and stuff, and how it touched me. But at the same time, right, they're stereotyped. They're scary looking people. That doesn't mean that they don't have hearts. I have friends who love wearing black. I have some friends that are covered in tattoos with, I don't know, rings in their nose that swear like a sailor, but they have hearts like gold. And in that stereotyping, right, you're automatically saying that that is the dark, right? That there's something wrong, something off. And then because you're in a nice clean robe, because you go to church every Sunday, that there is something special about you. Yeah, special, all right. Righteous is what they call that, right? Thinking that you're above somebody, right? That you've got something better on somebody else who might be in a situation, right? We don't know how people think, right? We don't know how people grow up and have these experiences that might make them rough around the edges. Does that make them a bad person? Certainly not, right? Yes, the light is coming into the world. It's going to continue to come into the world. That's evolution. I use this province that I live in Manitoba as a prime example, because we're not perfect. I'll say that, right? We're not perfect, but we have hearts that understand that we rely on our neighbors, right? We rely on the person next door. Our survival depends on it. Even in our weather of the two extremes, where it gets to be like -40, -50 in the winter with the wind chills, and in the summertime, right? It's the same temperatures, but in the pluses, and it is difficult, right? We depend on each other in our survival. But part of evolution is being able to understand. And if you guys have been hanging out with me for any length of time, one of my mission statements is it takes all kinds to make the world, because we're not there yet, right? And I don't think the destination is just to be the light, right? In and especially not in any recent times coming close to us in any way. If that's going to happen, it's going to be thousands of years from now. I mean, look where we're coming back. Just go back 150 years ago, the way we treated our own citizens in the Black community and in the Indigenous community. And again, we're not perfect and we're not completely there yet, but we have a much better sense of tolerance than we did back then. We are always progressing, right? And it's a terrible thing that it's about the light over the darkness, right? That somebody righteous, somebody's good, somebody who has a good job, goes to church and has lots of money and can take care of their families well. What about that person who doesn't have any money, that is just doing the best that they can by their kids and making sure that they have milk on their cereal, right? You know, we have to appreciate that we are all in the same storm, but we're all in different boats. And when I say that, I mean we're all in different stages of our evolution. And we shouldn't be making statements like the light has won, the good is overpowered the bad. It's going to be a process. And when we say stupid things like that, because it is kind of a silly thing to say, right? We discourage people who are trying to overcome their situations, right? You know, I have friends that have hung out with bad crews and have gotten pulled into those lifestyles and may have one time even considered themselves as a bad person, right? And yet they've pulled themselves out of the state and they've upholded these new standards for themselves. And then they have somebody righteous say, oh, I don't think so, because in their old life they decided to cover themselves with tattoos, right? And they shaved their head and pink mohawks, but now that's part of their personality. They love the mohawk, they love the shaved head, but their heart feels differently, right? But because you see the mohawk and the shaved head and the tattoos, you think that person is evil and you're downtrodden somebody, right? It takes all kinds to make the world, right? We are getting better. Light is coming in, right? I know people in the moment that are in their collapses in narcissism and in control, and their lives are totally falling apart. That's part of the shadow work, that's part of the lessons in your life and challenges so that you can recognize where you got things wrong and maybe try to get yourself to a state. It doesn't say you won't be able to meet that challenge because we all have different capacities, but they're trying, right? They're trying. And some of them are going to succeed, and some of them are going to have fallbacks and failures, and it might take decades to be able to get them to a state where they feel good about themselves. But how can they get to that state when they're being stereotyped by people who think they are the pillars of the community, that they got their poop all together, right? You know, and I have to be grateful that there has been so many discussions. Thank you, Tammy. I appreciate that you say that. Right? It does take all kinds to make the world, and we can't judge people by the way they look in the networks and the friends that they hang out with. You know, I have a friend, and I'm going to call him a friend. I've known him for decades. If you knew him, you might think that he was a bad man, right? That you might think that he was somebody who influenced badly on others. right? And to be honest, he has some negative traits, and he would even admit to that himself. But in comparison to his friends and to the people that he hangs out with, he's an example to them, right? Because he does have a kind heart. He would be one of those people who would help a little old lady across a flooded street, who would come over and pound some nails into a door that needed repair, right? He's so considerate and so kind, and he's always been very, very kind to me. And that's the truth. But I also know that he's not perfect. None of us are perfect. None of us are, right? If I thought that way, I wouldn't be here right now, right? I would be on the top of the pile, or at least representing myself as such, but it's because I want to do it the right way, right? I don't want to be that person who casts the first stone when I have my own issues, right? And we all have issues. We all have handicaps mentally, emotionally, physically. You hear me say it all the time, right? But I'm not going to give my attention to any content that's being presented to me that's going to make people think that there are sides to that fence, right? If you don't want to go and socialize and hang out with these people, get to know these people, help these people in where you have strengths and they have weaknesses, and understand where you're weak. If you need a door fixed, that maybe this person, this scary looking person, right, with the big, beautiful heart, right, you're going to miss out in something important when you're in need, when you're in a crisis because of that intolerance for somebody else, right? You can see my blood's getting kind of steaming in the conversation because I'm a true believer it takes all kinds to make the world, because it truly does take all kinds to make the world. And there are all kinds in the world. And if you don't think that it takes all kinds to make the world, you're segregating yourself from the possibility of moving forward. And that is my opinion. I am steadfast in that. It's in the evolution of mankind. You have to look into the past and you can see it clearly, right? You can look at our circumstances right now from where we were to where we are right now, and you can say, no doubt, that is a truth, right? Nobody is perfect. It's going to take a long time before we get all on the same page. But do I think that page is the glory of the goodness of everything? I don't think so. We are human, right? And we make mistakes. And if nothing else, mistakes are sometimes perceived as intent, right? Even if it's not by intent. And it can make somebody who feels like they are the goodness make a mistake and step their foot into the darkness themselves, right? And how will they think about that? Are they going to beat themselves up with guilt and shame? If they truly have that heart, they will. But so will the person with the tattoos and the pink mohawk, because they have a good heart too. They will still also have that guilt and shame. Lots of times that mix of different doesn't happen because of that judgment, because of that perception of somebody who doesn't look the same as us, that doesn't act the same as us, someone who's from a different culture, somebody with a different political idea, for different religion, right? Different familial upbringings, and we judge that, right? And we judge that. Kind of made me sad, kind of made me mad when I saw that thumbnail because, you know, somebody's got to step forward and say, we don't want this kind of stuff online that's going to mislead people in the direction that we want to go. Yes, things are getting better, right? Maybe even lighter. But that's because we're becoming more tolerant in what's heavy. And then because we're more tolerant and more accepting and more welcoming in that, it makes that person look at you and go, oh my goodness, right? Maybe. Maybe this person in front of me is the example of what it can be like, right? And then what happens is the flying monkeys, right? They're the ones that are being so taken advantage of in the moment in these groups that they want to belong to, right? And the leader says, oh, do this for me and I'll make your life more comfortable, or you could be part of our little gang. And they get sucked into something because it's comfortable. They feel protected, right? And because they have this hypervigilance about themselves, it's, I'm going to be tough. You're not going to get one over on me. That somewheres with that kind of attitude is kind of accepted. But if they feel and see the examples and the evidence that they can pull themselves away from that, that's the idea, that each one of us has that opportunity to be the example, to be the evidence for our neighbors, our community, right? To be that person who doesn't judge, right? And we're not all there yet, right? Because we're not letting ourselves get close to something that's different than us to recognize possibly they're not so different from us after all. Maybe the outside is different, but the inside is very much alike. And, that was a lesson. I didn't learn that in mindset. I didn't learn that in my lessons or sitting in lectures. I learned that in my own childhood, in that need to have friends, to feel like I mattered, right? In my own bit of hypervigilance and in my own codependent way, right? That I had that opportunity to mingle and mix with people that lots of people would consider outsiders, outcast, right? Because I wasn't picking, right? Because I was being picked. I was being picked by the same people who didn't have any of those opportunities to have people in their lives too. And I was able to make friends that way. And I it breaks my heart to think that, we're not giving chances to people who have had it rough, that haven't had the opportunity because of their upbringing or their communities or their friends or their education or their financial situation because they got to wear secondhand clothes. I had the nickname as a kid, secondhander, right? My mother bought all her clothes at the secondhand store. And I was humiliated by that and I was judged by that and I was treated badly because of that. So yes, whoever wanted to spend some time with me, I was all in. And these people got to recognize that I was funny, I was kind, I was fun to be around, right? And I was able to assume the same about them. And in that, I got to recognize that it takes all kinds to make the world. And, maybe because of me, that I got to be the example and the evidence to somebody else, right? That maybe there were other people out there that would accept them. And also, that evidence was for me also because I got to learn that myself because I was able to hang out with some really beautiful, beautiful, beautiful people. Some of them ugly on the outside, beautiful on the inside. Some of them were beautiful on the outside and super ugly on the inside, right? But amazingly, I got to meet some people who were beautiful on the inside and beautiful on the outside. And those are the people that we want to emulate. Those are the people that we want to have in our lives, right? And those are the people that I had the privilege to be around that I have no idea, right? It was in my hypervigilance that normally that would keep me away from the pretty people, the handsome boys, the pretty girls, because they were most of the time mean boys and mean girls. But somehow I was able, and maybe it was in that little bit of hypervigilance and that little bit of codependency and that little bit of overgiving that I was able to find places in groups and in friendships that were accepting of me, right? Maybe it started with tolerance, right? Move to acceptance, move to welcoming, and then move to the point is, oh my goodness, you got to meet my friend Cindy, right? And I'm grateful that I had that opportunity to say the same about others in my life, right? Don't be so quick to throw the first stone. That's all I'm saying in that. Um, Let me just come back here. Tammy's yapping away. I know she knows I'm going to come in and read. She's super interesting and she has great insights too. Um, and Tammy says, "Me too. I have those same kind of friends and acquaintances, Cindy. And I know one of the denominations that I raised in and belonged for many years, I don't belong to that denomination no more. If I did, Cindy, they would send me automatically to hell. No joke. They were and are very, very judgmental. And I never acted like that. I have had people thank me personally for being a friend to them and to treat them nice. People who are trans, people who are nose rings and eyelid piercings, bikers, gay, etc. Oh my goodness. Tammy, I love you more and more every day. That's beautiful. And I did not learn my case from my parents, my beliefs and thoughts. No, I learned this on my own to be a friend, to help others. You get what you give. You hear me say it all the time. And this is a saying that has been around for thousands of years. And it's 100% the truth. You get what you give in this world, right? And if you don't get when you do good, oh my goodness, you are definitely around the wrong group, right? And it's time to find some good examples out there. Yeah, that's beautiful, Tammy. I love that little bit of insight that you said there. I wore secondhand clothes my entire life too, Cindy. I still do. I raised my kids like that, even though I did buy new clothes for my kids when I could. Oh, Kathy's here too. Hello, Kathy. Hello. Yeah, that's absolutely beautiful, and it was tough, and I don't know how the kids got to know that I was wearing secondhand clothes, probably, in that simple question, where did you get your clothes? And I said, oh, I got it at the thrift store. not thinking anything of it, not having any biases to the comment or anything, and then them picking it up as ammo, right? As ammo and using it against me, right? And I really did not like that name, secondhander. I really didn't. But at the grateful, I was the oldest child, so when my mom bought the secondhand clothes, the clothes were obviously handed down until they were no good to be wearing at all anymore, right? And we can't judge somebody by the way they look, right? We just can't. And we not only do we judge people how they look, we judge people from across the street. We're not even getting close to them. We've never seen them before. We haven't spoken a word. We haven't even said hello or looked up at them and smiled at them. And already we're judging people and making them out to be the bad guy, right? Because they look a little bit different. And that's one of the greatest unkindnesses, I think, you know, out there. And, those lessons were something that kind of hit me today. Like I said, when I came in here, my blood was kind of going a little bit, right? Because I do get steamy in that. Because, I really believe in my two mission statements and moving forward. It keeps me in a straight line, but I also understand where our strengths are and where our weaknesses are as a global society, right? And because of my beliefs and my understandings of the evolutionary process that we're in, it's very important for us to better get along with each other, right? And you can see it just in the past and how many things we have been able to resolve. People that we thought were evil or sick in the mind or good for nothings and wouldn't let your kids play with their kids and not even look up and say hello or good morning to somebody because they were just so different than you. And yet now we live in communities, right? Even within our own families where we have different denominations in cultures, right? That we have different religious beliefs, and yet we're allowing the children to grow up in being able to choose their own beliefs when it comes to religion. I know my father in the 70s, that wasn't very common, right? My dad was very spiritual. My mother loved Jesus, and they came to some kind of agreement. None of us were going to be baptized, and we got to choose for ourselves. And, I have to say, another grateful is that I never chose, right? Even to this day, I have beliefs, I have those ideas where I get pulled over, right? But it's in the understanding in those denominations that I resonate with. But I don't have a denomination. And it's because of that lack of denomination that I have been able to move the way that I have because those are prejudices that I don't have to deal with in any way, right? And it works very well into my mission statement that it takes all kinds to make the world, but we're not there yet, right? We have to get on some kind of common value system, right? Being in the world that we are now in this age of AI learning where we're all this close to each other that we'll have to find some way that we can properly interact with each other without accidentally, right? Without intent often to disrespect somebody whose values are way different than ours, right? So if we all had common values, just base values, right? Like the 10 commandments, right? But not the 10 commandments because then that again we'd be putting one religion over another, one group of people over another, and it's not about right? You guys hear me talk about that my favorite people in the whole world are the lights in their darknesses. But not only the lights in the darknesses, I believe I love the darks that are in their lightnesses because that's difficult, right? Because that's it's when you're not accepted, when you're made out to be the bad guy, the evil person, right? It doesn't give you much incentive, right? There's no trophy or prize at the end of it. Every once in a while you'll see somebody who lived the bad life and they get baptized and they find Jesus and they turn their life around. That's beautiful. But that's a rarity, right? But there are lots of people out there in their absolute darknesses trying their very, very best to move in the world in a way that they could be tolerated at the very least. And we're not even giving them the opportunity to do that. And it breaks my heart. And those are my people. Right? You know, it's not like I want to be around that terror, but when I see that if we had some common values, that I know that I can be around these people and feel safe. And I have been around these kind of people and felt safe and welcomed, taken care of, right? Enjoyed their company, be able to recognize, be around them and have conversations to the point where I was actually able to recognize that there was some light in these dark souls, right? It's where it starts, right? It's where it starts, and yet we're not letting ourselves get close enough to it. So when I see thumbnails ever again like this, I'm going to call them out because we can't have that happening. It's not about the light versus the dark. We're not even close to getting to that point if we ever do. We are only human, right? We're only human. I have no intention of excluding anybody in this stage of evolution that we are in because each one of us has that opportunity to be that example, just like that gentleman that I saw helping a little old lady across the street. It was all flooded and mohawk, tattoos, leather jacket, and most people would be like not even giving them the time of day, but in an emergency, right? You'll grab at any lifeline. And I hope in an opportunity of being taken care of and held up by somebody where you would once perceive them as somebody as, I don't think so, right? To warm your heart up to understand that that kind deed, that kindness, that heart might be kinder than your very own. So I'm going to leave it at that. Let me have a sip. My blood was steaming a little bit on that one. Nice to see you in here, Kathy. I appreciate you coming in tonight. So awesome. I posted on Instagram. I posted on Instagram tonight, Kathy. If you want to go in and check it out, I'm going to be redoing. See, I'm not where I'm now is not where I was a few years ago, and I was doing some copyright a few years ago on Instagram, and I went in and yesterday and I was reading a lot of my posts and I know my heart was in it, but I wasn't too sure if the message was getting across well. And so I pulled up some of those because some of the insights were bang on. And the messaging, I knew what I was trying to get the message out, but reading them over, I could see where lots of people wouldn't get it, right? So I tried to, it's kind of like a little proofread. So do some proofreading, add a little bit in, eliminate a little bit of what I was saying, fix up my grammar a little bit, and I put it out there. And yeah, so if you want to check that out, Oh, you did. Oh, thank you, Kathy. How was it? Was it good? Was it a good message? I hope you thought so. Right? That's that's awesome. Oh, really good. Tammy doesn't have Instagram. This is pretty much the only platform that she uses is the YouTube, so she doesn't move too far away from home. Yeah, I'll be calling out. Kathy, that's sweet of you. That's sweet of you to say. Aw, very sweet. Make me feel y'all feel embarrassed and stuff. I try. That's what I could say is I try, right? And I wouldn't be here right now if I didn't at least try, right? And that's the idea that each one of us be at least willing to try, at least willing to listen to a different view, right? At least to try and get to know somebody, right? Before you judge them. Because they made them to, like, they were beautiful ladies, black screen, all in witches' outfits, right? Saying, we defeated the darkness. And then you had this other little group. They were all in their white robes and blonde hair. And I'm just like, with the blue sky. And I'm thinking, that's just kind of ridiculous, is what that is, right? Yeah. And that's why I threw out that little Jesus quote, who cast the first stone, right? Is that idea like you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all. I hope you able to move along in evolution because I think that's the direction that we're moving in, right? And it's just not where I live or in this country or in this continent that we live in. It's the entire world. And this age of AI learning has just sped up that process, right? That we have become a little bit more tolerant in some places, a little bit more accepting in other places, and a little bit more welcoming, right? In some places. But I'd like to get that word some out of there and put all in there instead. We're just not quite there yet, right? It's going to take generations and generations. But wherever we can see and put the brakes on in places that are not representing well, right? That's where we have to call them on it. That's where you don't turn the other cheek. Because if you turn the other cheek on that, what happens? You're going to see more thumbnails like that. And you're truly going to have light going after the perceived darkness. And then the perceived darkness who are in their light already going, oh my goodness, like, and I want to be like that. Yeah, no, I don't think so. This is a little bit safer, right? I can protect myself a little bit better, right? Yeah, so it's about progress. Like we've looked at that. It's about progress, right? And we are progressing. We are getting better, right? We are getting better. Okay, here we go. Oh, one more thing that we're going to change because we're in the season of change right now, you guys. So I hope everybody's bringing a little bit of change into your personal life, into your work life, right? Expanding a little bit in your interests too, right? That we can make a little bit of movement forward starting Monday. Now, you're guys going to have to be a little bit tolerant with me because it's going to be a little bit different. But the whole conversation, I won't be coming in here when my blood is boiling and going off on a topic that I came in on, right? Maybe at the end of the live, I might go into it a little bit. But starting on Monday, we're going to start pulling the card first. And I'm going to try and make the whole conversation on that one powerful word, right? It's part of my change. I knew that it was necessary a long time ago, but it is in the practice, right? And sometimes I just come in here and I hit that live button and my soul just comes to the surface and it does its thing, right? So it's not just a Cindy thing, it's a soul thing too, right? So that's the way it's going to go. I'm still flying by my seat of my pants, right? It's only a powerful word, however, direction, whatever the lesson, the perspective, the experience that my soul wants to go in, I will follow through with that. But I'm going to try and hold the whole live on the powerful word. I believe, right, that these were part of those boundaries because I can go off into topics. I can, because I have a curious mind, because I take in so many different perspectives, and how I feel in one moment quite often, right, is a memory of something, right, that I came across and not something that I took on as part of something that is solid in my beliefs, right? So this will serve me well too, and probably serve you guys too, because that way I won't be leading you off in directions where I don't have that intent of being that example or evidence myself, right? Because it was only a momentary idea, right? Tonight, it wasn't a momentary idea. I believe, right, about this idea of not being judgmental and not segregating and keeping the light as light and the dark as dark, because the light has dark too and the dark has light too, and it's going to be somewheres in the middle that we'll meet, right? And that's the truth. And once we meet in the middle, right, in those values that we can set up in a way that is mutually acceptable, in a way that we can move together and interact with each other and get to know with each other, and finally we meet in the middle, at that point we can discuss, right, where are we going next. Maybe in the middle is where we were always supposed to meet, right? Maybe it wasn't supposed to be one or the other, but we're not even close to that. So can we just meet in the middle somewheres? And that's not even going to happen in our lifetime. It's not, right? So yeah, name calling is not right, and pitching one against the other is not going to work, because now there are three groups. Oh, there's four groups. There's the light, there's the darkness, there's the light in their darkness, and there's the darkness in the light. There's four groups now, you guys, right? It's not one or the other, right? Let's see if we can get to the point where we understand that there's only two. Okay, you guys. That's enough of that. I can go off a little bit later on my own once my live show is over, give it a little bit more thought and where I feel. I'm just going to have a little bit of my juice. Oh, that feels good. I'm going to sleep so good tonight. It's cooled right off. Oh my goodness, it cooled right off. I'm still going to blast that air conditioner tonight, but I'm going to sleep cozy underneath my blankets without sweating and mumbling and grumbling about the heat, right? And I'm grateful not just for myself, but for the people in my building, right? I suspect that it was a pretty good crowd at 9 o'clock in the morning, sitting outside in the front yard on the benches, all socializing with each other. They probably enjoyed it so much. That's the first thing they're going to do tomorrow morning, is just going to be a bigger party out there, right? Amazing. Okay, you guys, let's grab a card. So Monday, We're just going to get right in. And it's going to be a practice. I'm going to fail in that. But it's in that consistency that I'm going to get better, right? Okay, you guys, let's pick a card. We had that word goals twice this week, one day after another. I hope we don't have it again. Oh, here's a good one. Pertinent to the conversation. Effort. Where there is no effort, there is no gain, right? So I'm happy that I said something tonight, that I allowed that little bit of boiling blood come to the surface. Because if I hadn't done that, right, that would have been turning the other cheek in something that I feel very passionate about, right? It takes all kinds to make the world. It's not light against the darkness, good against bad. It's about learning to work with each other, live with each other, tolerate each other, accept each other, welcome each other, understanding it's a process, but without that effort, where there is no effort, there is no gain. That's pretty good. And it was pertinent to the conversation tonight. That makes me happy. Oh my goodness. Hello, Eugene. And you know what? That was like 1 minute, if that. Monday, I'll be in that word. If I pulled that word effort, I'll be in it for the whole hour. It's the challenge. Whether I'm up to it or not, I made that commitment, right? And I keep my word to myself. So starting on Monday, we pull the card and the whole conversation, maybe not the whole conversation, but a big part of the conversation will be on this word effort, right? And it'll be the first perspective. So I hope my soul is ready, that whoever or whatever is ready for that challenge to make sure that they're on board with me in that so I don't lose my pace. You can see how uncomfortable I am in that attempt. I don't know why, right? Because I come in and I don't even have a topic of discussion. I just hit that live button and I just go off, right? But to have that word, first perspective that comes to my mind, and then stay on that word, that's going to be a bit of a challenge for me, right? Because I think lots of times when I hit that live button, Cindy has no idea what the conversation's going to be. Those other parts of me are right on board. They know exactly what they want to talk about. Right? So it'll be a challenge for all parts of me starting on Monday. Okay, one more try, you guys. Effort. Where there is no effort, there is no gain, right? So we're going to give it a shot. You guys, have a great night. We'll see you on Monday. Tomorrow's my sister's birthday, so I'll be going over to give her a house clean and celebrate the day with her, take her over a cup of coffee. And then the evening will be mine, and then I'll be back here on Sunday night. If you guys want to come and hang out on Sunday night, I know Kathy will be here, Debbie will be here, Eugene pops in sometimes too on Sunday nights. If not, I'll be back Monday, you guys. Have a great night.